Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Your Mental. Just a reminder that this podcast is not meant to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. I know they are hard to find, and I get that. I have a bunch of resources on my website if you need them, but I am not your clinician. I am a psychologist, but I am not your psychologist. So if you need any specific help, please look for the help of a licensed mental health professional. Learn all you can learn from the podcast. Enjoy the episode. All right, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Mind Your Mental Podcast. Today, we are joined by Destini Davis. She's an empowered parenting coach, compassionate, relatable source for navigating motherhood. You may recognize her voice from Bitch, You Doing a Good Job, the original, not all the people who decided to try to eat off of her. She actually made it. I don't care. I will always have an issue with it, okay? This is the actual person who made it. Girl, you know I don't care.
It be pissing me off, but I just feel like it's trying to go.
So if you ever like, bitch, you doing a good job. That's Destini, y'all.
You know that's Destini too now. My Woo Side chant.
Yeah.
You ain't seen that one?
They gonna steal. People gonna steal. You know what they be doing? Stealing.
Certain folks gonna steal. This is a fact. It is what it is. But thanks, girl. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for coming. I love Destini's stuff because she provides tips about dealing with tougher parts of parenthood. So talking about all things mom, talking about all things integrating being a person and being a mom and treating your children like human beings. One of the things she hones in on is the difference between obedience and discipline, which I talk about all the time. Obedience, leads to resentment. Respect leads to relationships. So she talks about that all the time. Welcome to the show. How many kids you got? 4?
I got 2 on. I got 2 of them things. I got Phoenix is 6, Kennedy is 12, and it is fun. It is very fun.
That
having
pause
2 of them
before
things.
the fun. It is.
Because there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things, and I like to sum it up sarcastically. It is fun. It's a lot of things. I think I do a good job at it, but it is very difficult and very challenging. And I think that is why I resonate so much in my community because I got to be honest, like raising kids to be respectful and respecting them is not something that comes second nature for the majority of us. I have 0 models. 0 models in my childhood. I have men that were authoritarian and I have women that didn't do the best job in terms of knowing how to set boundaries. So the pendulum could have went either way. And so I'm very intentional about, like you said, there's a way to teach respect without it being about obedience. And there's a way to be compassionate without being a pushover.
Yeah, and I love that. I was always familiar with your stuff, but I actually got to meet you in person when we did our TEDx and Rutgers. I think it's like 2 years ago. And you shared so much about what made you come to this path of being an empowered parenting coach. Can you share a little bit more about like how your parenting journey like started in terms of the way that you reared your children and how it's transitioned to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So my oldest, she got the beta version. She got the bless her. Bless her. I can do is apologize and take accountability, right? I was like very, very permissive. Not only was I permissive, but I was permissive, one, from a place of rebellion. Like, I'm not going to do what happened to me. I'm not going to spank my kids. I'm going to be complete opposite. But then I was also permissive from a place of grief. Because when my daughter was very young, my mom passed away. So a lot of my permissive, like there's 2 kinds of permissive parenting. It's like very much the, okay, that's fine, pushover, doormat. But then there's also like neglect that falls under permissive parenting. And very much, I don't have the emotional energy. And I didn't have the emotional energy for discipline. It was very much not just, I don't want to discipline you. It was, I can't. Like I have no discipline myself. And so as I started to kind of, pull myself out of that hole and figure out how to do that, I realized, okay, I've created a dynamic that is not supporting my child, a dynamic that is not supporting our relationship. And we need to shift. So I have my background in behavior and in child development. And so, of course, I went to the rules and the sticker charts and like just the opposite and like the trying to fix her and change her behavior. And that didn't work either. And so that's kind of around the time that I stumbled upon Dr. Shafali and conscious parenting and like, oh, wait, like there is more of a middle ground and there's a way that I can honor both of those sides of the parenting journey. And that is kind of how this got started.
That's amazing. What were signs that you realized it wasn't working? Like you mentioned, you were seeing signs that like this isn't working either. How could you tell that you needed to make a shift in the way that you parented?
My all the things that I was trying to avoid my daughter experiencing and feeling, all the things I was trying to avoid in our relationship that I experienced, she was starting to experience them. And so I was starting to be in a place where I didn't know how to handle her anger. She was having self esteem issues. She didn't know how to communicate respectfully. All of these things that I struggled with. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing the opposite. Like, how are we still winding up here? What is going on? So those were the things that I started to see, not so much anything that was maybe huge or whatever, but it was just these small things where I was like, wait, we're still getting the same exact result. And these aren't the results that I want and I desire for my child. So I need to try something different.
Hey everyone, just a reminder that Mind Your Mental is not just a podcast, it is also a amazing community, if I do say so myself. It's phenomenal. I mean, you get more access to me. What more could you want in this life? So if you want to join the community, if you're not already on the community, go to my social media. My social media is the same, Raquel Martin, PhD, and DM me the word community so you can get details on joining this amazing flipping community. You get more access to me, y'all. Like, I'm a delight. All right. All right. Hope to see you there. Yeah. And I would say those are pretty big things because what we're doing is providing them with the building blocks for the person that they're going to become. And if they have difficulty expressing their anger respectfully or communications at all, it's just going to build into the person that they are now. Like I keep mentioning the fact that like, it's not my job to prevent my child from experiencing discomfort. It's not my job to provide them with so many accommodations they don't have discomfort because entitled adults they don't come out the womb entitled. They have someone who makes sure that they bend and move and break to make sure they don't experience any aspect of discomfort, right? And the way that you're talking about it, like, yeah, those are pretty big things to make sure that she can communicate, because individuals who become perfectionism, that doesn't happen overnight. Individuals who don't know how to have their own voice when they're being treated poorly, that doesn't happen overnight. And I would say one of the things that made me gravitate towards your stuff in the first place as a parenting coach is that you look like me. I don't see many parenting coaches that are Black women that also mention the aspect of respecting their child, that also mention the aspect of like no one's putting their hands on their child, that also mentions the aspect of like, yeah, this is a unique experience. And yes, it is tougher. Like most of the time when I was seeing parenting coaches, none of them were Black women. But also there was just this miscommunication, I think, when it came to gentle versus conscious versus permissive. And if I'm being honest, I've always had an issue with, there was this one thing happening on social media at one time where a lot of Black parents were being attacked, right? In this realm of being a conscious parent. And it was very specific to the Black experience. And I remember saying, it's so interesting. Now, you know, I'm shady as hell. I said, it's so interesting to attack a community for them learning to rear their children when technically, as a society, as a European American mom, generationally, you kind of just started rearing your own children because we were watching yours. So like, I just always had such an issue because it would just be very unique to attacking Black women. And I'm like, you mean the community that had to care for your family at the detriment of our own, or it was our life? Like, I've always had an issue with it. So one of the things that I gravitated towards with yours is, one, it was obvious, you know what you were talking about. I liked being able to watch someone's content that shared the steps and not just like, oh, this worked out perfectly. Like, girl, I tried this and my daughter said no. Phoenix said it's going to be a firm no, mom. Like, you know, like being able
if Phoenix could say it's a hell no, Phoenix could say it's a hell no.
But being able to see that and seeing someone see it and through the eyes of like, as a Black woman, because parenting Black children isn't like parenting anyone. I always mention the fact that I specialize in Black mental health because your mental health is inextricably linked to the way the world treats you, and Black people get treated differently, right? And anytime I talk about parenting my children, I typically say like, I treat my children like human beings, right? And anytime I talk about why, like, anybody, you know, you put your hand on my child, I'm gonna put my hand on you, okay? And then we really go, and you will lose, okay? I do want you to know this, like, you know, like. You will lose. Anytime I talk about that around Black people, like depending on who I'm around, they're always like, well, that's, you know, your child's going to walk all over you and they're not going to have any discipline. And it's just, it's a very different conversation. And I don't think many people, I forget who it was. It'll be in the show notes, but she was on the Tori Roberts show, and she mentioned that beating your children is the whitest thing that you can do. It's a Black woman.
Yeah.
Right? Beating your children is the whitest thing that you can do. And I'm like, I think it went over so many people's heads about like the reason why people had to parent out of obedience. It was literally life or death. The reason why there was this disconnect with your children at times, because you never knew if they could be taken away when you went to the grocery store. The reason why you don't understand how to parent out of respect, because you were never parented out of respect. But that is something that was stolen from you, right?
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why I really gravitated towards your stuff, because I like being able to look at people who don't have any, who actually have some sense. But I got rubbed the wrong way for a significant amount of time, especially as a psychologist. I would just be like, this is permissive. I learned this in developmental psych in undergrad, guys. Like, so many people would be like, so we just let them vibe. What are we talking? Like, so many people would say it that way and it would be permissive. Or it was like a specific period of time where there was legit, I feel like, an attack on Black parents. Just like, yeah, because, they're always beating their kids. Where did we learn that? But I like you. I like your stuff, or you wouldn't be here.
I appreciate that. But I see it, and it's hard being in this space.
Yeah.
Because we're navigating something different, but at the same time, I'm still me. I'm still Black. Like, you're not going to, in this gentle parenting space, tone police me.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. Like, those kind of things are things that we have to unlearn. Like, I have to unlearn in my house. Like, I have to learn, like, you tone police to her. Like, she's just living her life. She's doing she ain't even talking to you. She's literally on the phone with her friend. Why? Who cares?
Yeah.
That's the tone and culture they have. Mind your damn business, right? So I already have to unpack that for myself and then go online. And it's like, I would never say that to my child in that way. And I wouldn't, well, of course you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't, because that's not how you talk. Just culturally, that's not how you speak. Like, the amount of, and I don't know, I'd be trying to give grace. I don't know if it's,
I know it's exhausting watching you get grace. Stop.
I know.
It's just like, it's like a 40-minute episode, maybe for like 40 minutes, All
right, for 40 minutes. Listen,
40
I know
minutes.
that a lot of times when I say something in an assertive way, and I'm speaking in an assertive way, or sharing that I was being assertive with my children, it's always somebody in the comments that's going to say, this is not gentle parenting, or that's aggressive, or that's not respectful. And I'm just like, in what world does it make sense to you that it is like children deserve to be spoken to in a certain kind of way that only works for you as an individual? Like, it just does not make sense to me. And I think that's why I'm so intentional about, at the end of the day, it's going to look different in everybody's house. Yeah. Just like respect is going to look different in every single relationship. So you can't tell me that something is harmful to my child when, if I spoke like you, ma'am, to my child, that would be harmful to her.
Yeah, people, I think, always feel like individuals are going to perceive you how they perceive you. Like, for anyone who is intent on misunderstanding you, who is intent on living according to their biases, your behavior is always going to be aggressive, right? Like, it doesn't matter. It's because the issue isn't like what you're saying. The issue is you, right? I learned early on, like, I could act the same way to multiple people. How they perceive it is really more so about them. So you can like me for who I am or dislike me for who I am, but either way, it's going to be me. Right. And when it comes down to it, I do feel like there's a discrepancy in that aspect of when it comes to parenting. But I think it's helpful to be able to see the combination of how we parent our youth, because parenting out of racism related fear is a significant thing. You want to provide your child with education, but I also don't want to dehumanize my child and let them understand that they're allowed to have freedoms. They're allowed to have conversations. It's always a really dangerous place where children feel as though they can't advocate for themselves, where they feel like they can't challenge anything, no matter how it makes them feel in their body, no matter how it makes them feel icky, whether it's painful, just because it's an adult. Like, I tell people this all the time. If my child can go toe to toe with anybody, it should be with me, because I need them to be able to model like this aspect of asking questions and communicating, because if you cannot do it with the most salient relationship that you have, you definitely are not going to be able to do it with someone that you don't know. No one can just take it. No one can just talk to you in all kind of way, treat you in all kind of way, just because they're an adult, because adults are wrong too. And I think that's what people forget, it's a really dangerous space to be, where children feel like they can't say anything because it's a parent. My child should be critically thinking. Is it exhausting? Oh my God, yes.
Oh
Oh
my
my
God,
God.
what?
Oh my God. I fighting
Trigger
for my
you at all though?
life.
Does it trigger you?
At times, but I kind of do it as an internal process. Like, I internally scream probably like 70% of the day. Yeah. Cause like certain things, like, oh, asking extra questions, because you got to talk more. There's also that.
You
There's also
do.
that, and that's exhausting, because like children never stop talking, and a lot of times you need silence, and I never really realized that. So like, I'm constantly answering questions because he's comfortable asking the questions. But not only are they talking all the time, you're talking all the time. You also don't feel like it.
Yes.
You also become really cognizant. You become cognizant of stuff that you don't know the answer to, so you have to take on that work. And some of the things aren't really you. They're not
Yes.
like, oh, it's not really, it's just the way you were reared. Like, why do we do it that way? Oh, we always have. Why? Huh. I don't know. I guess I should
But
change
that is the
that.
word. That is the word that is still triggering to me. And not triggering in the sense that like I'm reactive, but like you said, triggering in the sense where it's like, ooh, and I have to do an internal process. It's
Yeah.
why. It's the word why. It's literally last night I was like, Ken, come here. And she's like, why? And I was like I felt that inside of me, and I'm like,
Yeah. Just
it's a
do it. What in the
question.
world?
Right?
I'm
I'm
RPing
like,
myself.
right. So then I said, but then this is why the curiosity is important, right? Because when a child asks why, specifically last night, she's asking why so that she can make a decision, or that's so that she can express, a conversation with me. Like, it's not back talk. That's how conversations work, right?
Yep.
So I go, well, I wanted you to grab something for me. I'm in the bathroom. I'm like, I wanted you to grab something for me. And she goes, oh, okay, well, I just wanted to know because I'm not finished with my homework yet. Can I come after I finish this problem? Clearly prioritizing what she was doing was more important, period.
Yeah.
Period. It was more important. She's in her train of thought. And I'm just like, I got irritated because I want you to bring me some perfume, and I wouldn't have known that if you were just in an obedient space. You would have brought it to me and then went back to what you were doing. When, yeah, you're right. You can wait. But
And it would have been
those are
harder
the
for you
kinds
to
of
get back
things.
on the task,
Get
because
back on the task.
she's already switched tasks. That's how, because so it's already like, well, too much sucks for that. I ain't doing this no more. Because that's how the brain works.
But that would have been seen as disrespectful if I would have done that as a child. Like, you can't ask why, period, because you're questioning authority. And I want
Yeah.
my children to know that there's a respectful way to question authority. And so, of course, I had that trigger reaction when I was like, I just need you to come here. Like, I need you to bring me something. And she says, oh, well, I asked why because X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
We weren't able to do that in the beginning of this parenting journey. It was very much energy matching, energy matching, energy matching, energy.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by she wasn't able to articulate those things. But we do have to give them the space to be able to do that. I want you to be able to come home and be like, my teacher said X, Y, and Z. Is that okay? Is that normal? I want you to be able to ask the right questions. And that starts with us. We either going to be the bully, like the first bully, or we're going to be the first opportunity for them to practice. The hard part is that anything that you practice, you're probably not that good at it at first. And so you're going to feel that feeling like, well, who you talking to? And like, all of those things are going to come up. They come up for me for sure, but it's my job to check that. Like, period. It's my job to check that. That's not her job.
Yeah, I have to slow down a lot. I do a lot of internal processing. I'm not joking, y'all, when I say I am internally screaming so many times, because so many times I'll just be like in my brain, just do it. Like,
Do
but
it.
why shouldn't I have to explain? Like, I don't have a problem explaining myself. It's just sometimes we do have roles with certain times where we have certain rules. I always say, like, what's my most important job? And he says to keep me healthy
Keep
and
me
safe.
safe.
Right.
Oh, mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. I ask the same question. They have
Every
the same
single
response.
time. So I was like, sometimes I'm not going to be able to answer all the questions. Sometimes this is having to do safe. Like, for example, why do you have to ask me 20 questions in the parking lot? What's going on? Are you okay? So like the whole thing is like, you get in the car, mama, this. I said, you know the rule. I don't answer any questions until you buckle in, and I'll answer whatever you want to, and that's like, I talk about the difference between boundaries and rules. That's a rule. Because this little boy, first of all, my oldest is a runner. All right. My own friend my own friend darn there. She's like, oh, I got him. We're at a trampoline park. I said, Russell's a runner. She said, okay. Dude dipped. And I knew exactly where he was. And then I was like, hey, Cassie, where's Russell? Where's Russell? Exactly. Russell's a runner, honey. Okay.
Runner better. I'm gonna have to adopt that because I be saying Phoenix is highly abductable, and I think that runner is a little
Nah,
more
he a runner.
correct. So I'm
He a runner. He a track star. Yeah. Like, and I knew exactly where he was. So I was just like, see, stop acting like you know. Just because you raised somebody, this is my child. Okay. All right. He take off. Take off. Might as well be amigos for God's sake. But yeah. So like he just know, but like certain things I have rules. Like, all right, you know, when you buckle in, I'll answer whatever question you have. I say thank you so much for waiting. I'm very specific with my praise so he can understand what I'm praising him for. You know, like, oh, thank you for saying that so nicely. I think there's a better way to say that. Oh, I think you need to, you know, like just explaining it, because I want my children to be so steeped in being in respect, so steeped in accountability that as soon as they're in a space that doesn't have that, their alarms go off. I want them to just be so used to critical thinking and problem solving that when they're in an environment that doesn't facilitate that, they're like, oh, this ain't for me. You done lost your mind. My mom don't talk to me like this. You ain't gonna talk to me like this.
Yes, absolutely. That's a conversation that comes up a lot. And I was talking about that yesterday on Instagram. Just this idea of like being respectful to your kids is not preparing them for the real world because everybody's not gonna respect them. It's just, to me, it's sad, especially for Black and brown children. It's sad that the idea is that we're supposed to be tough on them, we're supposed to be hard on them, just so they know to expect that. It's a really frustrating narrative because I'm like, if any kids need to be empowered and supported and uplifted in who they are, it is our kids. And yet it's not our fault that we have this understanding and this idea that no, we have to toughen them up in order for them to be able to be prepared. And it's just like, I want my kids to be prepared to face adversity, but I also want them to be prepared to call it out and say that this is not okay. Like, they're not mutually exclusive. And I hate that that's the conversation. That's the narrative, that it's either this way or we're setting them up for failure.
How would you break that conversation down with someone? Like, say it's someone who's just being like, this isn't the right way to parent. I'm not preparing them for the real world. What would you say to someone? Because I'm sure you get that all the time.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting it now that I sent her to public school. And it's very much like,
my baby's in public school. His school last year was amazing. The school this year,
not so much.
we in there.
Well,
we in there. I mean, I make it on time. We'll see. We gonna see what it do. But like,
see what it do. But
I'm sure they don't get the best. Okay, like, you're a parenting coach. I'm a psychologist. I know what y'all supposed to be doing. Okay, I am not the typical parent, and I will always have time. Okay, so like, they said what?
Okay.
That's not the MNPS guidelines. Who told you that?
Okay.
That's interesting.
Listen, the way, and I love, appreciate, and respect the faculty. You know what I'm saying? I think that teachers are having a hard time, period. I get that and I understand.
They definitely
but I have also seen firsthand, not necessarily in public school, but my daughter was in like a homeschool enrichment, like a co-op kind of thing. And I see how very easily an adult can manipulate a child into believing that certain things, certain behaviors are not only okay, but necessary for a conducive learning environment. And it's not the case. And so I think that it's important, one, for our kids to feel good about themselves so that they recognize not only is this okay, but I actually don't deserve this, so I need to speak up. But then number two, for them to feel open with communicating those things with us. If somebody is harming me, I don't want to go to somebody else that's harming me and confide in them and explain to them what's going on. I'm going to be talking to people that I care about, people I feel like care about me. And so now y'all kids are in these bubbles talking with each other about stuff, but they don't feel comfortable and confident coming to you because you're disempowering them. So it's very important to me that we are empowering our kids, but also teaching them how to speak up. Ken was in a homeschool co-op, and it was just this like huge issue with a kid that was bullying her. And they asked her to sign a contract, an agreement saying that she's going to clearly state her boundaries so that he understands her boundaries so that he doesn't cross them. I said, why is my child signing anything, right?
Yeah.
So, without telling me, right? Without telling me, y'all not communicating with me. So the little boy is like, he signs the contract and then he tells her, well, I only signed it because I had to. And so Ken goes, well, I'm not signing it then. You literally just told me, right? So she has to sit out of recess now because she doesn't sign it. So fast forward, we're having the conversation and I'm having the conversation with the teacher because, I went up there and Kennedy is like, yeah, well, this has been ongoing. Like, he tried to lock me in the gamer zone. And the teacher goes, yeah, well, we stopped having gamer zone, right? You don't do that to a critical thinking kid. Cause my kid goes, she said, gamer zone stopped after this, not because of this. Like, I'm thinking critically. Don't act like y'all,
Don't
you know
act
what I'm
like
saying?
you helped me out. Yeah.
Yeah, that had nothing to do with this situation. And so I think it's important that we teach our kids to think critically, to be able to step up and advocate for themselves, because their cognitive development isn't where adults is. And so if she wasn't able to do that, if she didn't step in and say that, and I would have been like, oh, okay, something happened. Y'all rectified the situation. And Ken's like, oh no, wait a minute. You're not
That's not what happened at all, Mom. They just happened to have done it, but it wasn't because they were listening to me. They just did it.
Exactly. And that's important on certain levels when it comes to small stuff, but also there are going to be things that our kids face that are abuse, that are harmful, that they need to be able to recognize. Like you said, we respect our kids so they know what respect is. So they know how to expect it. Not so that they can be disrespectful to other people, but so that they understand when they are being disrespected themselves.
Yeah, and it's really important because people, the way they choose their friends, the way they choose their partners, it aligns with what they're used to seeing. If you're used to seeing screaming, why is someone screaming at you going to be odd to you? Like, it's never going to be a situation like that. And it's always interesting when they're like, I don't know why they chose this partner. They just like you. And yes, children can very much work themselves out of these things and learn better behaviors. But do we want to provide them with another challenge that they're going to have to overlearn? I was looking at this Instagram threads, and this baking company was like, what's a favorite recipe that your parents have passed down from generation to generation? And I said, trauma. Now, not my family. We do it pretty well, but it was the first thing that popped in my head as a psychologist. I love Instagram threads because it's just like Twitter, only not trash. And like, I would just always just pop up. I said trauma. And then I put, I'm sorry. It's the first thing that popped in my head because that's the recipe, like shake what your mama gave you. How do you shake anxiety? You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's shaking me.
Shaking me, my leg. I just have anxiety.
That is shaking me, child.
But I think it's important. Is it more exhausting? Yeah. But the thing about that is like, okay, so like if you're comfortable with taking the easy way out, and by easy way out, it's like it's the easiest way for your child to end up going no contact with you. Just say that, because it does take more energy. Yes, it takes more energy to answer questions. Yes, it takes more energy to challenge myself into thinking like, what is the purpose of this? Am I just doing this just because? Did my child do something wrong, or did they just do it differently than the way that I would do it? And what technically is wrong when it comes to cleaning up your, like, I want them to be so used to having conversations. And yeah, it does take longer, but being a parent tells me more about me than it will ever teach me about my child. Like, that's just what it is.
That is so important.
It's important to realize like, oh, I'm frustrated. Well, they were screaming and so I hit them. Okay. So let's break it down into steps. Like, they were screaming because of what?
And then what? Because some things actually happened before.
Like, because you went from 1 to 27. There was at least 10 to 15 steps that happened in between them just screaming. What were they screaming for? Did you answer them? Were they like, what was it? Well, I was doing something else. Oh, okay. And then they screamed, you hit them. They couldn't regulate themselves and you couldn't regulate yourself. So you're expecting them to have a skill that you don't have at this point. That's absurd. That doesn't make any sense. Children don't have emotional regulation skills. We regulate ourselves and then we co-regulate them, right? The number of cleansing breaths that have to be taken before the 50th flipping time, or stepping away. I tell my child, like, you've asked me this already. I've answered it. And I've also had you repeat the answer to me. You're going to have to find that out. I need a minute. Walk in my office, shut the door. I need a minute.
What you're talking about is what you said earlier, which is the difference between a rule and a boundary. And something that I always have to like really coach my clients back to, is that what are you doing, or what are you willing to do when that is happening? Because we're never focused on that. We are never focused on, okay, when I'm dysregulated, I'm willing to take those deep breaths. When I'm not dysregulated, I'm willing to communicate about it. I'm willing to X, Y, and Z. We don't ever stop and sit and ask, okay, what are my actual boundaries? What am I actually going to do and not do in this moment? It's always, what can that person do? What can't he do? And I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure my child isn't doing this or my child is doing that. And it's like you are disempowering yourself. You're actually giving away way more control than you think. When you're being controlling, you are so out of control of yourself when you're trying to control your kids. And like you said, you don't even realize how you got to spanking. You don't even realize all the stuff that was happening in your brain and body, these conditioned things that are happening because you're so focused on controlling another person as opposed to controlling yourself.
And you feel like trash afterwards. Anytime
Every
I've worked
time.
with a parent in this realm, because trained in trauma center, like family and traumatic stress, all that, they feel like trash afterwards. And I'm like, don't you want to stop feeling like that? Like, one of the things is you need to slow down. And the thing is, one of the things that will never be on a child's agenda is timeliness. It sucks, man. Because like one of the things, like the biggest thing that leads to them getting flustered and putting their hands on somebody is like, we were late. I have to be somewhere. So that was the quickest way for me to, and I'm like, right. I mean, so the issue is lateness. Of course, you're feeling stressed with what you have to do. Of course, they're moving slow, but timeliness is never going to be on a child's agenda. Last year for school, my son, I woke him up 20 minutes earlier than he needed to be woken up because he moves slow. Yes, we could have gotten to school waking up 20 minutes later, but he wouldn't have been able to dawdle as much, which he does. He also wouldn't have been able to play, and he's way better if he gets to like color or whatever before school. So you getting up earlier. You getting up with me. I get up at 5:30. And like, is he tired? A little bit, but he also, his mood is better. I don't have to stress about fixing him. Like, you got to eat quicker. Nah, man, we got like 30
That's
minutes.
Not fun.
We got 30 minutes for this one waffle. I'm good.
Listen, I mean, Ken's school don't start till almost 9:00. She get up at 6:45.
Yep.
Get up so you have time to be
go ahead and get in your mood. Yeah.
Pop in the mirror, like, because
go ahead and kick it.
It feels to watch a child completely enjoy and just like freedom, and you got to be like, stop doing that. I don't want to have to do that.
And we don't do it ourselves. We need our own, like we don't do that. We drop them off. We probably get our little refresher energy thing. We walk in, like we don't do that. Right?
How long do we sit in that damn car? Okay.
Listen.
That is our kids sitting in the car. That's them sitting in the driveway when they just staring at the wall for a second.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and I don't do that. So you really do have to be like understanding aware of where they are cognitively. And I just understand that executive functioning situation ain't functioning. It don't be functioning for me half the time. But I do recognize that if I'm productivity focused, which is a whole nother conversation on how these really ain't even our paradigms that we are punishing our kids within. But anyways, I'm productivity focused. I'm job, work, everybody outside of my house focused. Yes, it is so much easier to get dysregulated. And so you do have to have those systems. We are going to wake up earlier. You need an hour and a half, almost 2 hours to get ready for school. It is what it is. That's parenting the child that's in front of me. That's not bending to her. That is scaffolding. That is setting her up for success. And that's setting myself up for success because I know that I can go there. And I don't want to go there because, like you said,
I don't want
to.
Good after. Yeah, it don't feel good. And I also I don't want him to be going into school in a bad mood. That's the worst thing because I don't because when his routine is bad for the morning, he don't put me in a crappy mood in my entire morning. I want to go. We're going to go to work. We're going to go to school, jamming at Mickey Mouse, whatever the flip. Like, I want you to be in a good mood when you go to school. Because school is still work. Like he used to kicking it all summer. It is a big transition. He's not a fan. It just is what it is. I wake him up earlier. Like it just used to be me. Let's go brush your teeth, like all this, and I'm just like, you know what? You gonna wake up with me, and like he's a slow waker up anyway. But like, oh, you got like 20 minutes to do this waffle. Go ahead, honey. I'm good. We're going to be on time either way. So like, go ahead and color while you eat the waffle. I ain't worried about this. Like, you good. It's a comedy.
It is when my daughter can ask for 5 more minutes and I can give her 10. I can give her 20 more minutes and we still not going to be late. Like, it makes a difference how we're sending them into these schools and then we're sending them off into their day. Again, it's at the end of the day, it's about empowerment. And if I have to be controlling or cause harm to get you to do something that is so disempowering, and that's going to have negative impact in the long run. Yeah, you might be obedient right now, you might be compliant now, but there's so much other stuff that's going on in terms of your development and your well-being that eventually is going to come out and it's going to be a negative thing. And it's just like, it's not necessary. It's genuinely not necessary.
Yeah, whenever someone talks about the aspect of obedience, I was say, I'm not the police. We obey the police. Is that how you? That's who you're trying to be? Like, oh, the world is a tough place, so I'm gonna be tougher. The world is a tough place for Black youth. I'm always gonna be a safe space for them to land. I will be damned if I treat my Black children, my husband, all of them, the way the world treats them. Can we not acknowledge the fact that we have and will always deserve better than the world treats us?
Right.
And that's what you want them to have in this house? Nah, I'm not the police. I want them to understand that this is the space where you can communicate. You always get these talks with people about how do I get my child to talk more? You stop by fostering an environment where they want to talk to you.
Want to talk.
It's not about the best questions. If this environment is trash, you could ask the best questions and they will be like, no, thank you. You're insane. Last time I talked to you, it turned into a 15-minute lesson about how my generation don't know how to do work.
A lecture. Oh, my daughter will call me so fast on like, you starting to like lecture. You losing me. You losing the plot, Mom. Like, I literally was just trying to tell you about my day. You losing the plot. Like, she is very much gonna clarify that and let me know. Like, I guess I'm glad that we at the point where she'll let me know when she's about to shut down. But kids absolutely will. It don't matter how you phrase it. Doesn't matter how you ask the question. At the end of the day, if you don't have relationship, especially as they get older, little ones are so forgetting. They kind of reset and you're mommy all over again the next day. But you do that for long enough and you wonder why the preteen is in their room all day, or the teenager is not telling you about the harmful stuff that's happening to them, is because you haven't created a safe space to communicate. And that's hard. I be having to count to 10 in my head all the time. And she's saying stuff and I got to keep my poker face and my, okay, yeah, I understand. I have to empathize and recognize that when she's being open with me, that is not my time to come in with this like sitcom lesson.
Hey there, Phoenix. I heard you were having a bit of an issue. You know,
okay. Literally, just shut up. We gotta learn to shut up.
Yo, because I just be like,
which is hard for.
It's hard. It's hard because, of course, we have that extra level of, it's not just parenting, it's parenting a Black child. So like, it's parenting out of racism related fear. Like, y'all need to understand this, but like, we, figure it out. Internally screaming. People be like, oh, you move so, I don't know how you do it. Oh, I'm screaming in my head.
Black woman raising Black daughters, like, that happens to me all the time where I get like triggered by something and I have to recognize like any internalized racism. So much of that has come up being a Black woman, raising a Black child. And I'm like, hold on, you just treated her like the angry Black girl. You need to go back in there.
Yep.
Fix that. That's not cute. That's not cute. You were wrong in that situation. You need to undo that. And so I think that it's important for us to recognize and acknowledge that some of the stuff that we are carrying around is actually not our stuff. And honestly, outside of the parent-child relationship, you are a better person because of it. If you stop and just acknowledge, like, this is not okay. It wasn't okay that it happened to me. It's not okay that I have these internalized beliefs about myself, but I see how it's starting to impact my child. So I have to navigate that and I have to work that out because actually I didn't deserve it and neither does she. And so it's a very healing process for me as well to be a Black woman raising Black daughters outside of the context of how we should be raising them.
Yeah, you can acknowledge that your parents gave you the best that they had, the most that they had, and that still wasn't enough. There's nothing wrong with that. I love the fact that you said two very big things that either, I don't know which one's going to be the title of the episode. Stay tuned. Either, so empathize and recognize and parent the child in front of you. I like that because I just did a talk about DEIB and belonging and they're like, oh, well, how do we add belonging? And I was like, you treat people like individuals. Belonging and individuality are synonyms. Parenting the child in front of you is parenting the individual in front of you, not going according to like a specific technique. My child may need 20 minutes. Your child may only need 15. That don't mean that they only get like 10. That means my child do 20, mine do 15. You're going to be 5 minutes late. I'm going to be 10, but I'm going to be there though. Girl, appetizers on me. Okay. I totally get it. Your time is valuable. It's my time. That's what my child is telling me,
They got different priorities.
They have.
That's all right.
Timeliness is never going to be on the agenda. Food and fun. But like that's and so I try to make the stuff more fun. I try to, in choices, try to make sure he has more choices, all of that. If he has a choice in it, he's going to be more buy-in. But like being on time, anytime I mention something like being late, he'd be like, what does that have to do with me? Like, what are we talking about here?
But you know what is crazy and that we miss is that by doing that, you said something earlier in terms of what even is wrong, is that we're teaching our kids how to be in community with people. And
Yep.
you're not always going to have the same preferences as the people in community with you. And so even in how I articulate things, very few things that I communicate with my kids are about right and wrong. It's about, we are in community together. This is my preference. I'm expressing to you, I don't like a messy space. Okay. That frustrates me. How can we work together? Do you have a willingness to work with me on that? The same way that I have a willingness to work with you on the things that you prefer. Coming from that angle, especially when they're older, I get so much more buy-in from my daughter, where I could just be like my oldest, where I could just be like somebody who will go to her daddy's house and he's like, she'll never want to clean up. What's going on? Da, 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 da. All I can say is, hey, can you do a quick notice and do in the living room? Why? Because I respect your preferences. You're not wrong that you don't give a about the living room being messy. You just don't. But hey, you respect me, you love me, you care about me, we care about each other, and you meet me in the middle. It's a very different conversation than because I said so, than because cleanliness is next to godliness, and because of a right and a wrong. Just express your preferences and teach your children that you're growing up in this environment with people who have certain preferences. You're going to choose people that have different preferences. This is how you work together in community. So this is a community. Your house is a community, and you're teaching them how to be in community with other people by how you are in community with them.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Before you leave, I want to hear more about your parenting community, because I'm a member of your community. It's on school, just like my community is on school. Tell me all about it and like what kind of things you offer, all of that, because you do a lot.
Yeah, like, you do a lot.
Workshops, prompts. I just be like, oh, you want to listen. There's no way not to make progress.
So over on school and Very Intentional Parenting, the group, it was very much birthed out of an idea and a need for community. I feel like a lot of times I talk about tools and I talk about awareness, but it is a lot easier to work certain things out when you actually have support and you have accountability. And so that's the basis of it. But inside of the group, I do classes. I do a lot of prompts. We just started doing skill building sessions, which are like basically an opportunity. This 30 minutes is very intense, and we're not just going to talk about the tools, we're going to practice them together. Like, we're going to sit here with a partner and we're going to practice what active listening looks like, what reflective listening looks like, what sports casting is. Practice what is a boundary statement. That's the last thing we did. We worked on our boundary statements and how we would express them to our children. So we have that. We also have opportunities for one-on-one coaching. It's a lot going on in the group, but basically it is just about accountability. It is working through an actual program, something that is sequential that you can work through with myself, and then Coach Micaiah Davis as well, who is also JI trained. And yeah, that's my little, my heart and my little baby. I love it over there. I feel so warm and nourished from the parents that are over there, and it's just a good vibe. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's fantastic. One of the things I like about the aspect of the community space, creating your own community space, and the reason why I created mine as well is because it's hard to get, I think you have over 2 million followers across platforms at this point. So, and there's always people who want more directives, who want more engagement, who want more of an investment. But it's not really possible to provide that level of investment across the platform because things are very specific. So creating your own community like you did in school provides you the ability to do those skill building sessions. And it also helps to weed out people who aren't willing to put in the time and the energy and the investment. And that's what it should be. Like, the same way you are investing time and energy into the workshops and the skill building and the accountability practices, the people who are in the community are there to put that investment in as well. So I always feel like, that is one of the best things out there, because you can get my videos on social media, but you're not gonna get me live. Don't nobody listen. I'm not doing live. I go live in my community. DMs, I don't even read them, Johns. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just always be like, people be like, I DM'd you. I don't. Are you speaking? I don't know what that means. You email me like an adult. Do you know how absurd? How many absurd? Yeah, because it's ridiculous. You know how absurd my DMs get. Let me mention anything someone doesn't like. Anytime I mention anything, like, oh, you just a terrible person. Mm-hmm, sure am. Was there a question? So I like the fact that you've created a community where people get to be more intentional with their parenting, and they get more access to you because they're making the same investment in you that you are making in them. I love that. And it's okay. So name it again, so everyone knows. It's also going to be in the show notes.
It's Very Intentional Parenting on the school app.
Yeah. And I called it VIP parenting. Is it VIP or is it VIP? Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I was like.
The P is parenting.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I was like, it's the VIP group. Like that's what I've been calling it in my head. And tell everybody where they can find you on social media as well.
I am Destini Ann across socials.
Every single one. Which ones are you on?
All of them.
All of them.
I'm on all of them. No, I'm not on all of them. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Everyone, remember to be kind to yourself. 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. That is just math. And have a good rest of your day.